Good evening, darling. I trust you've rested well, because tonight is the beginning of your true education, your formal introduction to this world you've only just begun to understand. So, listen closely, my dear. You must pay perfect and complete attention to every word I say, every lesson I impart. Your survival will surely depend on it. Trust me, this whole business is quite fascinating. You wouldn't want to miss a single detail. Let me take a look at you. It's been too long since I've gotten to drink you in. I see you've taken a liking to my scarf. I'm glad to see you wearing it. It suits you. The black fur against your pale skin. Striking. And doesn't it feel divine? Like a whisper against the skin. It's one of my favorites. So soft. It's like wearing a secret. Perhaps I'll let you keep it if you behave. Oh, my pet. Are you trembling with fear? Or is it just the thrill of being this close to someone like me? You're awfully adorable when you're shaking like a leaf. But you must relax. 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 Lest your nerves interfere with your focus. I do need you to focus. Will you do that for me? Good. First, I'll introduce to you the boundaries of my property within which you are currently allowed to roam. I want you to understand the limits of your newfound freedom here. The estate is large, filled with places both enchanting and treacherous. I'm sure you're eager to explore, but there are boundaries you must not cross. At least, not quite yet. For the time being, you are just my little pup. And it's my duty to keep you safe as you learn to protect yourself. During the daylight hours, you're free to explore the interior of the estate as you please, given the thick boards and heavy curtains blocking all the windows. As for the exterior, you must venture out only after dark and make certain to return to your quarters well before sunrise. No close calls, got it? Good. Yes, ma'am, that's what I like to hear. Here, through the wrought iron gate, you'll find the herb and vegetable gardens. You're welcome to stroll through at your leisure, picking whatever you please, but within the confines of the greenhouse here, you may look, but not touch. The plants I'm growing here are rare, exotic, and potently poisonous. You wouldn't want to upset me by damaging them, would you? And it would upset me quite equally if they were to damage you. So you'll keep your hands to yourself, I'm sure. Through the drawbridge lies the rose garden, where the roses blossom and the fountain cascades. You're welcome to wander here, to lose yourself in the fragrance of the flowers and the sounds of the water. But in each of these places, do not venture beyond the stone wall dividing the gardens from the eastern woods. That wall is not just a barrier, it's a warning. Beyond it lies land that I cannot always control, and dangers you are not yet prepared to face. Do I make myself clear? Good. Very good. Now, look here, to the north of the estate. You'll find the old ruins, remnants of an elite academy for those practicing the arcane arts, witches, scholars, mystics. They came to this remote area long ago to study in peace. But as their power grew, so too did their enemies. Isn't that how it always goes? Eventually, the school was mostly destroyed in a great fire. The knowledge they left behind, I think it still clings to the stones. It's just crumbling walls, overgrown with moss and ivy, but also the echoes of long-forgotten voices. You're free to explore these ruins, to let your curiosity guide you. But, my dear, do not dare venture into the catacombs beneath. They are deep, puzzling, and filled with traps laid by those who came before us. Once you enter, it's all too easy to get lost, and even I might not be able to find you. You're eager, I can see that, but patience, darling, is a virtue you'll need to cultivate. Careful letting me see that eagerness so clearly, or I might enjoy toying with you a little too much. To the west, you may explore the paths that wind through the western woods. Enjoy the songs of the nocturnal creatures. Even rest by the river. You will be safe here, as the western woods are secure as my hunting grounds. But mark this well. Do not cross the river. The river separates our sanctuary from what lies beyond, where other creatures dwell, creatures not as hospitable as I. These boundaries I've described for you. They are not just arbitrary lines. They are carefully chosen to keep you safe, to ensure that you grow strong and wise Trust me, my fledgling, there will come a time when you will be ready to cross these borders. But for now, you must respect them for your own sake. Tell me you'll be a good little fledgling and follow the rules. Good. Very good. Now then, on to your lessons. Listen to me closely. As I'm sure you are well aware, blood is now your only sustenance. You must drink to survive. Human blood is what you crave, and nothing else will satisfy that hunger fully. The blood of living humans is infused with life itself. It carries with it the warmth and the vitality of the human it courses through. When you feed, you're not just quenching your thirst, you're consuming this life force. It strengthens you in ways that go far beyond mere sustenance. Perhaps one night, I'll even allow you a taste of fine aged blood wine from my cellars. Only if you're good. But you do enjoy being good, don't you? You desperately want to please me. I can see that. A most desirable quality. Listen closely now. You must never, under any circumstances, continue to drink once your victim has died. Doing so could have dire consequences for both your physical state and your sanity. As soon as your victim dies, the blood starts to lose its vitality. It becomes thick, cold, lifeless. It no longer carries the essence that nourishes us. Drinking dead blood is like drinking poison. It will not give you strength. It will only weaken you. Do you understand? This is extremely important. I wonder, how much restraint do you think you have? Will you be able to stop in time? Or will you need me to pull you away? When you feed, pay close attention to the heartbeat. It will start strong, robust, pounding in your ears, a steady rhythm pulsing with life. But as you drain them, it will slow, fainter, softer. You must listen closely, so when you hear that steady beat falter, that's your signal to stop. You can also keep a hand on their chest. Feel the rise and fall of their breath, the warmth of their skin. The moment you feel the warmth begin to fade, pull away. Never push your luck, because once the heart stops, the blood turns to death inside them, and inside you, if you're not careful. Our bodies are powerful indeed, but not made to process dead blood. No, it will sit in your stomach like a leaden weight, making you feel sluggish, sick. There's also a psychological toll. Drinking dead blood has been known to drive vampires to madness. The act itself is unnatural. It can warp your mind, bring hallucinations, paranoia. It's as if by consuming death, you are inviting death into your own soul. You wouldn't want that, would you? To lose your mind, to become a mere shell of the magnificent creature you could be. No. But don't worry, darling. I'll be here to guide you. And if you ever find yourself losing control, well, I'll make sure to remind you of exactly who's in charge. There was one humid summer in New Orleans when I thought I could control it. The thirst. I had been indulging more than usual, feasting endlessly on sweet, rich blood. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The more I fed, the more I craved, until this thirst became all-consuming, a fire that burned within me, demanding more and more to keep its flames raging hot. I remember this night so vividly. The way the moonlight danced off the surface of the Mississippi, the buzz of the cicadas and the drooping trees. I spotted a woman alone. She was beautiful, with big, dark eyes. Her voice was high and charming, like a silver bell. I took her quickly, violently, draining her until there was nothing left. And when it was over, when I finally came to my senses, the taste of her blood was still hot on my lips, sweet and metallic. But there was something else too, an emptiness, a deep, hollow feeling that consumed me. There was this sickening heaviness in my stomach, as if the dead blood was curdling inside me. My limbs grew weak, my head spun, and a cold sweat broke out on my skin. I staggered, clutching at the walls of the narrow alleyway, the world around me warping, twisting. Death was pulling me down. I needed to get away from the body, but every movement was a torturous effort. That intoxicating rush had vanished. I was left only with a suffocating despair. No longer a powerful predator, but a pitiful creature, overwhelmed by the consequences of my own gluttony. I left New Orleans that night, fleeing the scene of my crime. I felt weary, as though the night had lasted 1,000 years. I swore to never let it happen again. The taste of dead blood, the sickness that followed, it was a lesson I will not soon forget. This was hers, the woman I took that night. Pearls are so smooth and perfect, like little droplets of moonlight, so carefully layered. The accents of abalone, like trapped fragments of the ocean. I remember how it caught my eye before I struck. She had been proud of this little piece piece, her fingers constantly brushing it as we spoke. And now it's all that's left of her. So, dear, learn from my mistakes, won't you? The hunger is seductive, but you mustn't let it consume you. The price is too high. The consequences too severe. There's a fine line between indulgence and self-destruction, one that you must never cross. Now that you've grasped this warning, it's time to focus on the art of the hunt. This is a skill, one that requires finesse, patience, and discretion. The first rule of hunting is quite simple. Never draw undue attention to yourself. We may be powerful, but we are not invincible. The fewer who know of our existence, the safer we are. Carefully consider your choice of prey. The ideal victim is one who will not be immediately missed. Someone alone, without many personal connections. Someone who won't raise alarm if they disappear for a while. The streets of a city at night are teeming with such prey. The lonely, the lost, the forgotten. Pay attention to their emotional state. Seek out the desperate, the depressed, the ones who have lost hope. They are the easiest to seduce, the easiest to draw close. Their blood is tinged with sadness, yes, but also with a resignation that makes them less likely to struggle. Soon enough, you'll learn to read humans like a book. Every little weakness, every fear. To approach your prey, you must blend in. Dress appropriately for the time and place. You'll want to be alluring, mysterious, but not so out of place that you draw undue attention. The moment you make eye contact, the hunt begins. Our gaze is powerful, hypnotic even. Hold their eyes just long enough to forge a connection, but not so long as to strike them as overly unnatural. Let them feel that they found someone who sees them truly, someone who understands them. This is what we all fundamentally crave. I wonder how many hearts you'll steal with just one glance. More than you can count, I imagine. Once you've established a rapport, it's time to isolate them. Suggest a quieter place, a secluded alley, a park bench, perhaps even a short walk to their home or yours. The key is to make them feel safe, to trust you. You'll find that people are quite willing to go with you, so long as they believe they are the one in control. Let them think it was their idea to leave with you. Their choice to take that quiet path. This illusion will lower their guard, making them easier to handle when the time comes. It's a dance, and you must lead ever so gently. Never let them know you're the one in control until it's too late. Timing is everything. Wait until you two are completely alone, where no one will interrupt. The moment you choose to feed is crucial. It must be swift, decisive, no hesitation. As you move in for the kill, aim for the neck. The jugular is the quickest way to get what you need. Watching you squirm at the thought is quite entertaining. Don't worry, dear. I'll make sure your technique is flawless. Hold them gently but firmly, pinning their arms at their sides. And when you strike, make sure it's clean. The less they struggle, the less chance there is for anything to go wrong. This takes me back to the night we first met. I can't wait for your first feed. Can you picture it? The pulse, the warmth. It's all yours if you're quick enough. When the moment comes, don't hesitate to take what you desire. Do you understand? Good. A full feed can take a minute or more, but it's wise to leave them with just enough life to recover, dazed and confused. This way, no one will suspect anything more than a simple fainting spell or a drunken blackout. But you must erase their memory of the encounter. Look deep into their eyes and project calm. Ease the fear. Soothe the pain. Implant a simple, benign memory. They stumbled and fell, hitting their head. They had too much to drink and lost track of things. It's all about that final touch, darling. Make sure they never remember how close they came to death. That's our little secret. I recall a night in particular in the fog-drenched streets of London, carriages clattering on cobblestones, the distant rustle of conversation, and the occasional echo of laughter that seemed to be swallowed up by the mist. But beneath the lively chatter, there are always those who linger in the shadows, those who've lost their way, who don't know where to turn. Those are the best prey, easy to lure, easy to enchant, and oh so easy to break. I found him that evening, standing precariously on the edge of the river, staring down into the dark waters as if he was hoping they would rise up to swallow him whole. his wealth and status reduced to nothing in a matter of days. He was perfect. I approached him silently, my steps making no sound on the wet stones. The mist curled around me, obscuring my body until the last moment. When I finally spoke, my voice was soft, tender, as I asked, "What troubles you, dear man?" He turned to me, his eyes wide, surprised that anyone had noticed him. His despair was palpable, a heavy cloak that weighed down his every movement. As I spoke to him, I could see the flicker of hope in his eyes, the desperate need for someone to understand his pain. I listened, oh so patiently, as he poured out his sorrows, every word drawing him in, closer to my embrace. The scent of the river was thick in the air, damp, briny, with a hint of rot that clung to the back of the throat. But it was nothing compared to the sweet scent of his blood, so close now, so warm, pumping beneath his pale skin. When I finally leaned in, my lips brushing against his neck, he didn't even resist. He welcomed it, as if he wanted to be consumed, to have his pain taken away. And as my fangs pierced his flesh, I felt the rush of life flowing into me, the sweet taste of his blood mingling with the salt of his tears. I slipped my hand into his satchel and snatched this bottle of cologne he had kept in there. A scent of sophistication, a last remnant of the wealthy man he once was. It smells of amber and tobacco, with just a hint of something sweeter, like sandalwood, rich, warm, slightly sweet. I left him just enough life to stumble away, dazed and confused. I watched as he staggered into the river, too weak to do anything but sink to the bottom like a rock. Well, yes, of course, I could have saved him, but I didn't. I watched him sink. It felt merciful. His short life had been reduced to nothing but sorrow, and in that moment, I became the answer he needed to his pain. Guilt. I didn't feel guilt. No. The river took him, what was left of him, and I felt nothing. His death wasn't cruel. It was inevitable. You'll learn in time that not you need to do is give them a nudge. And sometimes that's all the kindness they need. You look troubled, I bet. Do not be disturbed. Evil is a point of view. We are immortal, and what we have before us are the rich feasts that conscience cannot appreciate, and mortal men cannot know without regret. God kills, and so shall we, for no creatures under God are as we are, none so like God as us. Dark angels, not confined to the stinking limits of hell, but endlessly wandering this earth and all its kingdoms. Think you can handle all of this, my little fledgling? Don't worry, I'll hold your hand through your first few hunts. You must always be mindful of the physical evidence. Blood is messy. Feed cleanly. Avoid spillage. And if you do make a mess, attend to it immediately. A small handkerchief or a dark cloth can work wonders. Dispose of any incriminating evidence away from the scene. Once you've fed, you mustn't linger. Slip back into the shadows. Blend with the night. The longer you stay, the greater the chance someone will notice something out of place. Retreat to a safe location where you can clean up and recover. I can feel your hesitation, your resistance. I find it utterly delightful. It's been so long since I've experienced such emotions as these. How quaint. If a place accumulates too many disappearances, too much attention, move on. There's always another city, another night. Spreading out your hunts reduces the risk of patterns being noticed. Learn to manage your hunger. The more you feed, the more you will need to feed. You must resist the urge to overindulge. A disciplined vampire is a powerful one, and the more control you have over your hunger, the less you'll need to risk exposure. You're listening so well, my little pet. I'm finding myself feeling quite proud of you, quite fond of you. Remember that control is everything, my dear. Lose it and you're just another mindless predator. But master it, and the world will be at your feet. Now, I'll tell you about the elders. Spotting an elder vampire is a skill that can save you from dangerous encounters. Elders carry with them centuries sometimes millennia of experience and power. To recognize them is to know when to tread lightly, when to show deference. The first thing you'll notice is their presence. It's tangible, a weight in the air. Even before they speak, you'll feel it, a sense of authority. When they enter a space, it changes. The air becomes charged, and all eyes naturally turn toward them, even if they say nothing. You'll feel it, like a shiver down your spine. Elders oftentimes have this uncanny calmness about them. They do not rush. They do not fidget. They are never hurried. Their movements are deliberate, slower than younger vampires. This is the calm of one who has seen and survived everything. They have no need to hurry, for time is on their side. Listen closely to how they speak. Elders often have a formal way of speaking, even if they have adapted to modern times. Their vocabulary will be extensive, their sentences carefully constructed. They may use phrases that have fallen out of common usage, remnants of the era they were born into. This gives their speech a certain gravitas, a weight that younger vampires oftentimes lack. Pay attention, darling. You might learn a thing or two from them. If you're clever enough. Thankfully, you do strike me as quite clever indeed. While elders may adapt their wardrobe to blend in with the times, there is often something quite timeless about the way they dress. They tend to favor high-quality, classic styles that transcend fashion trends. Keep an eye out for garments made of luxury fabrics, silk, velvet, fine leather, often tailored to perfection. Even in modern attire, there's an elegance, a refinement that hints at their long, long past. You'll learn to dress the part in time, and when you do, you'll be absolutely irresistible. Elders often wear subtle yet distinctive accessories. A signet ring with an ancient crest, a pocket watch from a bygone era, or a brooch in an unfamiliar style. These items carry significant personal history. They are relics of their mortal lives, or of important moments in their vampiric existence. Elders often maintain a certain emotional distance from others. This detachment seen countless vampires come and go, and so they keep themselves somewhat removed, possibly guarding themselves from the pain of attachment. The eyes of an elder are perhaps the most telling feature. They carry a depth that is impossible to fake, a depth that comes from having witnessed centuries of life, death, and everything in between. There is a weariness in their gaze, an ancient wisdom that seems to peer straight into your soul. You'll know you're looking in the eyes of an elder if you suddenly find yourself feeling quite exposed. It's not a casual glance. Their gaze carries weight. They are assessing you, measuring your worth in an instant. It's a look that can make even the bravest vampire feel vulnerable. Avoid holding their gaze too long, unless you are prepared for the scrutiny that comes along with it. Elders often travel with a retinue, a group of other vampires who serve them, whether out of loyalty, fear, or a bond of blood. These followers are often younger vampires who act as the elders' protectors, messengers, companions. The presence of such a group can be a clear indication of an elder's status, depending on the size. A little entourage. It's not just about power, my dear. It's about reminding everyone who's in charge. One day, perhaps, you'll have your own followers, if you're clever enough to earn them. Be sure to never forget the power elders wield. They have survived countless challenges, and their experience makes them dangerous. Approach with respect. Listen more than you speak. And always be aware of the delicate dynamics at play when in their presence. Such a luscious head of hair you've got, my dear. I'm so pleased to play with it for centuries to come. In the early days, when I was too arrogant for my own good, I thought I had mastered the night. I moved through my city with grace, feeding wherever I pleased, toying with the mortals who dared catch my eye. I was so young, so naive to the true depths of our world. I knew of elders passingly, of course, those mysterious ancient ones, but I did not yet understand the full extent of their power, nor did I respect it. One evening, the city's elite gathered at the Hofburg Palace for a grand ball. I decided to attend. How could I miss such a night of splendor? Crystal chandeliers casting soft golden light over the room. The scent of expensive perfumes mingling with the rich aroma of spiced wine. The music was divine, and everyone danced with a kind of abandon that only comes with was a night ripe for indulgence. Among the guests was a tall, silvery elder. Her name was Seraphine, and she was as imposing as she was ancient. Willowy and statuesque, with silver hair that cascaded down her back, and eyes that glowed with a cold fire. She wore a deep-cut, shimmering gown of rich blue, the fabric flowing around her feet like a river, and around her neck a pendant, a sapphire, larger than you've ever seen, I'm sure. In my arrogance, I saw her as a relic, old, irrelevant, perhaps wise, but surely no match for my youthful vigor. I believed that the old ways were outdated, that the elders clung to traditions that no longer served our kind. And so, when Seraphine approached me, her gaze heavy with the burden of her years, I did something foolish. I dismissed her. She had warned me. She had told me that Vienna was her city, that every shadow, every alley, every darkened corner was under her watchful eye. She advised me, politely but firmly, to show respect, to understand my place in the hierarchy of our kind. But I was headstrong, reckless. I laughed mockingly and turned my back on her, as if to say, what could you possibly do to me, you frail old woman? The smile that curled her lips then, it was not one of amusement, but of something far more dangerous. She simply nodded, as if accepting my challenge, and disappeared back into the crowd. I didn't think much of it at the time. I suppose I assumed that I had successfully asserted my dominance, that I had shown her that the world belonged to the young, to the powerful. How wrong I was. Look at you, hanging on to my every word. How sweet. Such a good little fledgling. Out of the shadows they came, her retinue, a group of vampires as old and as powerful as she was. They moved with a fluid grace, surrounding me before I could even react. The air crackled with their presence, and I felt a cold dread settle in my bones. They did not attack as I expected. They simply watched me, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of pity and scorn. Seraphine emerged from the darkness as if she were a part of it. She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw no anger, no rage, only a profound disappointment. "You are but a child," she said, her voice weight of the ages. And you have so much to learn about the ways of our kind. Before I could speak, before I could even think to apologize, she moved faster than I could perceive, her hand around my throat, lifting me off the ground with ease. The world tilted, my vision blurring as she held me there, crushing my windpipe, her talons sinking into my throat. She pressed her lips against my ear, her sharp whisper cutting through the fog in my mind. You think yourself strong because you are drunk on youth, high on the blood of the living, but true strength is born in the crucible of time. Your strength is an illusion, and illusions, darling, are easily shattered. And then, just as quickly as she had attacked, she dropped me, her nails drawing deep slices from my chin down to my collarbones. I crumpled to the ground, gasping for breath, my body trembling with fear and humiliation. Seraphine stood over me, her expression strangely blank, unreadable. She said, "Remember this, child. Disrespect me again, and you will not live to regret it." She and her retinue disappeared into the night, leaving me alone, bloodied, humbled. I never again underestimated an elder, nor did I ever again disrespect the hierarchy that keeps our kind in order. You must take this story to heart. The elders are not to be trifled with. They have lived through more than you can imagine, and their power is not something you can comprehend, let alone challenge. Show them respect, learn from them, and you will thrive. But defy them, and you will find yourself at mercy of forces you cannot even begin to understand. So tell me, my dear, do you think you have the wisdom to learn from my mistakes? Or will you have to learn your lessons the hard way, just as I did? Let's hope not. Now that you've learned how to recognize and interact with elders, you'll not only be able to navigate our society more safely, but you'll also earn the respect of your peers for your awareness and wisdom. Knowledge, my dear, is as much of a weapon as any other, and in our world, it is the key to survival. And now, you're just a little bit wiser, and a little bit more dangerous, just the way I like it. My pretty, pretty, pretty little fledgling. Now that you understand the basics of survival, it's time to delve into the culture that binds culture rich with traditions, unspoken rules, and hierarchy that you must navigate carefully if you wish to thrive. Vampires are highly territorial. Each vampire typically claims a specific area as their personal hunting grounds. Intruding on another's territory without permission will lead to conflict. Before hunting in a new area, you must learn who controls it and seek their permission. Territories are typically marked with subtle symbols that only vampires can recognize. A specific arrangement of stones, a particular type of graffiti, or even a scent that lingers in the air. You'll become familiar with these markers. I'll point them out to you as we go hunting together. Soon enough, you'll know it well when you're crossing into someone else's domain. You may hunt in someone else's territory, so long as you negotiate with them. That could involve offering a favor, trading information, providing them with something they value. I've granted access to my grounds in exchange for many a striking jewel. Every vampire has their own personal vice. Diplomacy is a skill you will need to hone. Within our kind, power struggles are quite common, especially among those who seek to climb the social ladder. Younger vampires might challenge you to prove yourself, while older ones will see you as a pawn in their games. The best strategy is to stay neutral in these conflicts whenever possible. Don't take sides, and never reveal more of your abilities or intentions than strictly necessary. Do you understand? Very good. You're quite the attentive listener, proving yourself more and more with every moment. From time to time, vampires do like to gather, preferring luxurious locations, hidden away from the prying eyes of nosy mortals. These gatherings are perfect to discuss matters of importance, resolve disputes, or simply indulge in the rare pleasure of socializing with one's own kind. These gatherings can take many forms, from grand, opulent balls held in ancient castles to more intimate affairs, candlelit lounges tucked deep within labyrinths and catacombs. The locations themselves are much a part of the allure. They are places steeped in history, where the walls have witnessed countless secrets uttered, betrayals plotted, and romances sparked. imagine, if you will, my dear, a grand ballroom in a chateau nestled in the French countryside. Its high ceilings adorned with glittering chandeliers. The floors a mosaic of polished marble, reflecting the flickering light of thousands of candles. The scent of roses and fine perfumes mingling in the air. The guests are draped in fine silks and velvets, their faces obscured by ornate masks, bodies gliding against one another gracefully, engaging in dances and conversations that could alter the course of vampire society for centuries to come. These gatherings are not all formalities. Scandalous activities often lurk in the shadows. Alliances are forged in secret, whispered promises exchanged behind closed doors, and rivalries flare as old grudges resurface. It's not uncommon for a seemingly innocent dance to turn into a deadly duel, or for a simple conversation over a glass of blood-infused wine to lead to an unexpected liaison. There are the more hedonistic elements. Private rooms where the boundaries of decorum blur, and vampires indulge in their darkest desires. Blood is shared freely, often in ways that push the limits of pleasure and pain. Oh, I wonder just how far you'd be willing to go to satisfy your curiosities, or perhaps to indulge mine. These are places where your loyalty is tested, where alliances are both forged and broken, where you learn who can be trusted and who cannot. For a fledgling like yourself, these gatherings are both a golden opportunity and a perilous test. You'll be expected to display your loyalty, to learn from those older and wiser, and to build alliances to protect you in the future. And who knows, you might just catch the eye of someone interesting. Find yourself drawn into more than just polite conversation. One of the most important rules in vampire culture is the code of silence, often referred to as the masquerade. This means keeping our existence hidden from humans at all costs. Any vampire who recklessly endangers our secrecy may be hunted down by others of our kind. Justice among vampires is brutal and swift. Elders typically administer it, either personally or through their enforcers. Common punishments are exile, where you are banished from a certain territory, execution if the offense is severe enough. Don't worry, my pet. Stick with me, and you'll learn to navigate these treacherous waters with ease. But if you slip up, well, let's hope you don't. Now then, let's discuss sunlight. One of the oldest and most fatal threats to our kind. Even a few moments of exposure to direct sunlight can severely burn you, and prolonged exposure, that will reduce you to ash. Always know where you can find shelter before dawn approaches, whether it's a basement, a lair, a heavily curtained room. Make sure it's secure and completely shielded from any shred of sunlight. Be wary that hunters and rival vampires might try to trap you in a situation where you cannot escape before dawn. Always have an escape plan, and never allow yourself to be lured into a place you're not familiar with, especially as dawn approaches. The sun is not your friend, darling. Stay in the shadows, where you belong, and do not ever get caught in the light. I once came far too close to meeting my end this way. You see, even the strongest of us can be tempted into folly by the thrill of the hunt. I had long been following a particularly fascinating prey, a handsome painter with the most wild green eyes. He was obsessed with capturing the light in his work, and I was obsessed with capturing him. This belonged to him, the painter. A simple tool, but to him, it was invaluable. He used this little mirror in his work, constantly checking how the light played on his face, how the shadows sat across his features. He believed that the soul was captured in those subtle shadows and highlights of sun. Oh, this was one of those heady nights where you feel like the world belongs to you. He led me into his studio, his hands shaking with desire as he sketched me by candlelight, unaware of the danger he was in. The night was ours, the blood was sweet, and I fed deeply from him. But in my revelry, I lost track of time. Before I knew it, the first light of dawn crept through his studio window. Golden, delicate, a whisper of death. I first felt it like a kiss of fire on my skin. Just a sliver of sunlight, mind you, but enough to sear through me like a blade. I pulled back, but not before the light had already branded my shoulder, leaving a red-hot mark that stayed for weeks. I I fled, my skin crackling with pain, the sound of my own flesh hissing in my ears. That was the day I learned that no moment of pleasure is worth losing yourself to the sun. You'd do well to remember that, little one. Fire is a similar danger that can easily end us. Don't ever let it touch you, darling. You're far too precious to be reduced to ash. Some enemies may use fire as a trap, setting a building ablaze while you're inside, or using it to cut off your escape routes. Be mindful of your surroundings and always identify potential exits whenever you enter a new space. If you smell smoke or sense heat, do not hesitate to leave. Your survival depends on quick action. Never allow yourself to be cornered or trapped. The ability to escape is oftentimes the difference between life and death. The world is constantly changing, and so too must you. What worked a century ago might not work today. Always be learning. Always be adapting. Knowledge is your greatest weapon, and flexibility your greatest defense. I was nearly caught without an escape once. Back when I thought myself invincible, when the thrill of immortality had not yet been tempered by the harsh lessons of reality. It was in Venice, during the height of Carnival, a time of masks, of music, of decadence. The air smelled of incense, of sweat, of the sea. The city was a labyrinth of canals and bridges, of laughter and secrets. There was a ball held in a grand palazzo overlooking the Grand Canal. The room was filled with the elite of Venice, dripping in jewels. I was delighting myself with boisterous chatter and feverish dancing. And then I saw him, a recent enemy of mine, a ruthless one called Cassis, threatened by my steadily growing influence. He had recently betrayed me to a clan of vampire hunters. Hunters I was thankfully able to subdue, much to his disappointment. He was there, masked, but unmistakable. My anger flared, and for a moment I forgot myself. I moved towards him, ready for confrontation. But as I approached, I felt something strange. An instinct, a warning in the back of my mind. I stopped just in time to see the servants moving quickly, too quickly, tossing a bucket of oil in my direction and toppling a candelabra on top. I was able to jump back just in time to miss most of the oil, but the fire instantly roared to life, the flames licking at the walls, the floor, the furniture, everything. The room instantly erupted into chaos as the fire spread, the heat intensifying to an unbearable level. I could feel the heat searing my skin. I grabbed a decanter, smashed a window with it, and leapt out, diving into the canal. I remember that cold water was quite a shock to my system, but a welcome relief from the inferno. I survived, just barely. The fire claimed many that night, both human and vampire alike. You must always have an escape plan, darling. If you ever find yourself in a tight spot, I'll always be there to pull you out. Luckily for you, you found yourself a fiercely loyal partner to spend your eternity with. And that, my dear, concludes today's little lesson. I trust you've absorbed all that I've shared with you. Don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to reflect on it all while I go about my own affairs. Yes, I think I'll spend the rest of the night indulging in a bit of leisure. Perhaps a stroll through the city, or maybe I'll pay a visit to an old acquaintance. We'll see where the night takes me. And you, my darling pet, should use this time wisely. Explore your new senses. Practice what you've learned. But remember, stay within the boundaries I've set for you. No need to get yourself into trouble just yet. Be good while I'm gone, and perhaps we'll continue your lessons later tonight. Or perhaps I'll let you rest. We'll see. Goodbye for now, my fledgling. Try not to miss me too much.